Hi, this is Brett Cenkus. I am a business attorney with Cenkus Law and an M&A or mergers and acquisitions advisor with Brayton Woods. I do videos on all sorts of topics, but a lot of mergers and acquisitions material. If you have an interest in more content, free checklists, articles, videos, templates, tools, legal agreements, all sorts of stuff, again, all of it free, head on over to merger-resources.com. If you have any questions for me, please reach out. If you think something I said is super insightful or super stupid, feel free to drop a comment and join the conversation. So appreciate you listening today. Enjoy the video. Today we're talking about roll-ups, which are a special type or specific type of merger and acquisition strategy. Now, if you want to see an investment banker just absolutely lose it, salivate, just become putty in your hands, just can't think straight, what you need to say is roll up. I'm telling you, go to a bar in Manhattan where investment bankers hang out and just casually drop to the person next to you, we're executing a roll-up strategy, just loud enough so the investment bankers to the side can hear, and I'm telling you, they will beat a path to your door. Partly joking, not entirely joking. Roll-ups are very exciting and financial. They're exciting to financiers. So a roll-up is, as I said, a merger and acquisition strategy tends to be executed by a financial acquirer. So I've done other videos you can check out about strategic acquirers, which are other players in the industry buying competitors to grow, and then financial buyers, which can be private equity type shops or often financial buyers, or basically money people who aren't necessarily, at least at the beginning, industry experts. They're more driven by the finances. They bring in other people's capital and they execute in a particular industry, but not because they are industry operators or used to that industry. They just find one that appeals to them. So when it comes to a roll-up, this is very much a financial acquirer-driven strategy to purchase smaller companies and bring them all into one parent or like global brand, for lack of a better term, or like portfolio. So it is a strategy that is executed in very fragmented industries. By fragmented, I mean there's not a dominant player, or if there is, there may be one, but that one may have 50% of the market, and then the other 50% of the market is split up among 50 different companies. So it's like there's a lot of maybe mom and pops or something more than that, but the point is there's not really usually a dominant player. And any smaller player lacks the ability to grow and dominate. And if there is a dominant player, there wouldn't be more than one usually. The smaller players lack the ability to really compete with them. So a roll-up strategy, the finance people bring in money, they identify an opportunity to roll up a fragmented industry, and they just start buying up these companies, and they centralize the back office, they centralize the financing, they centralize, in most cases, the front office, for lack of better terms, basically the brand and the front end to companies. And some successful roll-ups in the past, well, the king of roll-ups, at least back in the day, he passed away not that long ago, but was Huizenga, who rolled up waste management, was a roll-up. You might not know that term because there really aren't waste management really isn't a household name, but the garbage collection industry was highly fragmented, and Wayne came in and started buying up these individual, small, fragmented, mom-and-pop kind of shops and centralizing their back office and their administration, their finances. One big benefit of a roll-up is that companies, there is a correlation between revenue, the amount of revenue of a company, and the multiple they can command in an investment or in a sale context. So if you're buying up small companies, you might pay 2.5 or 3 times seller discretionary earnings, and as you get to be a larger and larger company, the company, your company is trading for 4 or 5 or 6 times. If eventually you take that company public, I was a deal person, buying companies or identifying targets and buying companies for a publicly traded media company. We were trading at shoot, I can't remember, it's been 20 years, but 30, 40 times our earnings, and we're buying companies for 3 or 4 times. So you're immediately getting this increase. So that's another one of the strategies. Now, waste management, Blockbuster Video, which has been out of business for a bit now. AutoNation, those are all Huizenga roll-ups. So Blockbuster Video, when I was a kid, there was one video store in town. It was called Cheshire Video, where I lived growing up, and eventually and that was very similar in a lot of towns, and eventually Blockbuster came through and started buying up, and they would buy the videos in bulk, they would centralize the back office, they would control what was on the shelves, and just be much, much, much more efficient. So this is not the same as a platform acquisition. A platform company or platform acquisition can form the basis of a roll-up strategy, but it doesn't have to. A platform company or platform acquisition in the M&A arena is usually a private equity group's first entry into an industry. So they'll buy usually a market leader who is dominant, not a mom and pop small kind of fragmented company. They're buying a dominant player to serve as a base company to start to do other acquisitions. But the roll-ups tend to be, again, fragmented industries, buying a lot of companies and centralizing. Platforms can can be used in that way, but platform companies may also be just a private equity group is really interested in the space. Right now, engineering firms are really in demand, and private equity is really making a push to kind of get in and purchase private engineering firms. But what they'll do is get a platform company. They've got a management team who can help them understand the industry and help them start to purchase other companies. A lot of times those companies continue to exist on their own, under their own brand. There may be no centralization. It may just be that this management team, this dominant position, helps us understand the industry and tackle it. But it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to fold all these acquisitions into a common house. So why do the finance people love roll-ups? Why will it just make them salivate? Well, my theory on this is because it is all about execution. So in venture capital, venture capital is very much a, sort of put your finger up, does that sound good? Hey, what if we come up with a search engine that uses some algorithm based on links and stuff? It's like Facebook, Google, right? These ideas, when you first hear them, it really is tough to pick winners. It's really easy to think you can, but where the profits flow in venture capital tend to be over time to the tier A venture capitalists, the Andreessen Horowitz and Kleiner Perkins of the world, who have amazing deal flow and get the most seasoned, best entrepreneurs, not necessarily the best ideas, the best teams and entrepreneurs, and then it becomes a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, because when Andreessen Horowitz funds a company and they say that to the people think, oh, wow, right? So it's like that ecosystem is fairly tight, and ultimately it turns out to be about execution, although the way it's pitched is about idea, and this great idea, but the ideas are very hard to predict success up front. On a roll-up, the idea is ancillary. The important thing is identifying an industry that's ripe for a roll-up, that's highly fragmented, that centralization of the back office, front office, finances can really make a difference. And then it's about execution. So for very quant-driven, spreadsheet-driven finance investment bankers, it's like that I can get my hands around. I don't know if that technology would succeed. I don't know if, some app where I find someone to come pick me up and they drive me in their car is I don't know. It's it's interesting, but very hard to predict. And there's so many things, even if the idea is good, the execution is so murky and so many decisions to be made that it's really a much more random process, let's say. And again, that sort of self-fulfilling prophecy, that ecosystem, the deal flow kind of makes it harder for groups who aren't on the inside to pick that off. Private equity groups aren't in that business to begin with. They're not in the early stage investment home run business. So they're more in the turnaround story or roll-ups and things like that. So they can really understand it. It's completely holds constant, or for the most part, for idea, and it puts it all on execution. which is really attractive because it feels like it can be controlled and it's simple. Now, it's simple to understand, okay, but it's not simple to execute, and herein lies the problem. And by problem, I mean, nothing is easy. You can count on nothing being easy in the 21st century global economy. Nothing is easy. If someone tells you how this is so simple, come over here, you'll kill it, your antenna should go up. Now, I'm not naive. Some people reap what they call economic rents. They do very well in certain spaces that are very hot at times, but those tend to fade out. And even I was in the mortgage business in Houston in 2001, 2002, 2003. That was a very, very hot market in time across the country, but it was still competitive. At some point we were running into part-time post office mailmen just slinging mortgages on the side, industries that are hot attract a lot of people and a lot of capital, a lot of competition. So it's not to say some people don't have outsized returns, but to think anything's going to be as easy as, I've made that mistake many, many times. It's never like that. And it's the same with a roll-up. And the reason roll-ups, again, they're not about idea, they're about execution. So do the math. They fail because of execution. And they're very hard to execute. It turns out that acquiring companies and folding them into your umbrella is not simple. Now go back to the platform company where a private equity group buys a market leader with a great management team to establish a dominant position in an industry. Then they start to buy other companies. If they keep those companies entirely intact, they don't fold the brand in, they don't centralize the back office, it can be much easier. There's not that much integration risk. With a roll-up, kind of by definition, you are going to integrate these into the home brand. And so that can be difficult. That's a clash of cultures. Or, a lot of times you still want, in a roll-up strategy, the acquirer will still want the management company of the seller to stay on for some period of time, maybe indefinitely, but they're taking a lot of the power in decision making from that management team. So someone who's built a business and then sells it and thinks this is great, I'll go on this next ride, and all of a sudden they realize, hey, this is a lot different. I was calling the shots before. I don't really think that makes sense. It's like there can really be a clash of sort of cultures, and it drives really, not fundamentally from they have a new owner, although that can be some of it. It drives from that new owner wanting to put their stamp and change how the business that was sold operates. So the person who sold it, might have built that business for 20 years and have a lot of their own ways of doing things. And so there can be a lot of integration execution risk. But it's seductive because it seems so simple sort of in theory. And I do believe, you've heard me probably talk about this before, that I think a lot of spreadsheet-driven investment banking types don't have an appreciation in a lot of cases for the softer side of things and the cultural issues and how hard it is to integrate. And that's not a perfect science, and you don't get that done with a spreadsheet. You get that done by understanding people and a feel of something over time. Besides integration, it's very important to have a very disciplined strategy, and I would expect a private equity group or investment banker group or someone back in RollUp Strategy to be fairly disciplined. They have deal heat too, which I've talked about before, where they just get excited and want to buy stuff. But I think they could execute to a strategy, but again, part of the discipline is around understanding the businesses that don't fit your strategy, and some of that is because of soft right-brained kind of skills around in a more sort of intuition and EQ than they are just IQ and spreadsheet. So sometimes even if they know in theory what they want to do and could execute a disciplined strategy, again, it comes back around to difficulty in the implementation to understand what they shouldn't be buying. And some of that is just because of blind spots or not truly understanding those cultural fit issues and all those things. And you'd be surprised how many very, very, very intelligent people in the world have that blind spot, and how many people who you wouldn't necessarily think could execute a RollUp strategy who get it intuitively, but they tend to be kind of two different skill sets that don't always match up. So again, because you take idea off the table, roll-ups seem very simple, but they're not simple to execute. They're seductive, but they're challenging, and they involve a lot of integration risk, but they can be tremendously powerful when they work. Witness Wayne Huizenga and Blockbuster Video, what he did there. And so it's an exciting strategy. I'm interested in what you think about it. I'm interested if you've been involved in roll-ups, if you've seen them work, if you see other sort of benefits or risks. Reach out to me, leave a comment. Would love to hear from you.